Thanks again, Shaun, for hopping on, man. We really appreciate it. I know we were chatting a bit pre-show, but this is Untapped Stories, and our whole goal with this is to give coaches, young athletes, and parents kind of like the real insight on what it is to become a high-level player, to excel in your sport, and to reach the pinnacle. But I mean, you've done that with a lot of athletes. So the one question I'd like to start off with, before we get into your like coaching background and what you do day to day right now, maybe if you can, for everyone listening, paint the picture and take yourself back to your younger days. So what was it like for you growing up as a young athlete, and what was your kind of origin story with basketball or just sports in general?
Wow, that's pretty cool. So my Batman, all right, Batman story. Here we go. So for me, I think it was a little bit different. I probably won't go in too much depth about it, but I had a very, very, very turbulent childhood. So after school was out, I was left alone a lot. So my outlet was basketball. My life became basketball. It was a way I could enhance my creativity. It gave me freedom. And because I avoided being home so much, I was on the court so much, I got really good really fast. And so it was a way for me to be a leader for other people. Other people started looking up to me. So I think for me, it was more so therapy. It started off as therapy, and then it just grew into something that I loved. And I loved being on the court, and I loved the way that I could relate to people, and I loved the respect that I received on the court. And it just became this, somewhat of an addiction in a very positive way. So I was able to take a very negative situation and flip it into a positive, and that's kind of that core amount of strength and what I went through as a kid. I try to put that together in a certain way where I can package it to the kids that I teach now, or to the adults or the college students I teach now, and try to frame their perception as well. So that's my story, man. Just, didn't want to be home, wanted to be at the court, and it paid off. And and I'm really grateful for everything that happened, and sports can really change lives, and I'm living proof of that. So I think that's, without going too much into crazy detail, I think that's the overall origin story for you.
Seems like you used basketball not just as something to keep you in shape, but even at a young age as an outlet as well, which I'm sure a lot of athletes do. When you were starting off playing at the court, was there anyone you met when you were younger that was maybe like an influence on you, either whether it was playing on the court or a coach that you met when you were younger, when you first started playing?
Man, it's tough to really say. My grandfather was really a big influence for me, because he was like the light in the dark. So he would show up to every one of my games, and we're Italian, so he would be yelling. One day he got thrown out. I'll never forget it. He got thrown out of the gym because I was getting fouled a lot, and he's waving his arms around, typical Italian stuff. So I would say that he's one of my biggest influences. Rest his soul. Just an amazing, strong man that I'm very fortunate I was able to take a lot of the principles that he provided me as a kid, and that was kind of the light in the dark there. I say beyond that, and which is really, really cool, is someone entered my life later, a little bit later in my adolescence. This person taught me about personal training, and I was very small at that time. He taught me how to eat. He taught me about nutrition. He taught me how bad sugar was. All the things that I tell other people, he was there for me, and in the beginning, he wasn't getting paid for it. And that was so powerful for me, because without an immediate father figure, without an immediate influence at home, I was able to see him on Sundays. We would have a blast. I'd look forward to it every week. I put on 20 pounds of muscle with that influence. It's crazy. There's a lot of kids out there that just don't know about nutrition. And if they ate a little bit better, they would just stack on muscle. And they just don't realize it, because life is going fast. They've got their own troubles. And so under his influence and his guidance, I put on 20 pounds of muscle in 3 months, because I was extremely deficient nutrition wise. So I was completely deficient. I didn't have enough carbohydrates. I wasn't doing anything at the optimal level in my health journey. And so completely changed my life. So I pay homage to him by really trying to get people off sugar, really trying to change their brains before anything else. Before I can change their shooting form, I'm trying to change their brain. And that was the influence that he placed on me. We had a great relationship. for about 3 years of he taught me spirituality. He taught me self-control, discipline. He taught me mental toughness. He would call me out when I was being soft, and a lot of these kids right now, they don't like that, especially in this era. But he taught me how to be truthful when it comes to that in a loving, respectful manner. And I try to do that as much as I can with my students and my clients and my college kids. And a lot of times they don't like it, but they come back around and learn that, hey, if you didn't tell me that at that moment, I would have gone a completely different route.
Yep.
So that's the one person right there that was just instrumental in my development and my mental development. The way that the brain, I think, is treated in psychology and psychiatry in America, like if you have a problem with your heart, you go and you get an x-ray, right? They kind of know what's going on. Here, there's one doctor that's very good at it, treating the brain, Dr. Daniel Amen. He'll actually scan your brain to see if you have problems with it. There might be a little bit holes. You might have a little bit of gray matter or problems, or your amygdala may not be firing on all cylinders. He'll actually scan your brain. But here, a lot of times with psychiatry, like they just give you a pill, right?
Yep.
So he was the one guy that also told me how to be super aware of what's going on with your brain, how to develop it. And I always try to teach that to my students, like, hey, you've got to really look at things this way. Your behavior is going down a very, very bad path. We've got to kind of steer it back, And so I try to give them the tangible things when it comes to brain development. That's very, very hard to see or discuss, if that makes sense to you guys.
Actually, one kind of follow-up question on that. I know I saw this a lot when I, before we built Athletes Untapped, did a lot of coaching to have the idea for this. It seemed like half the time I was really trying to work with the kid, obviously on their shot and their dribbling, but a lot of it was on the mental side in training. But say if, you're working with hundreds of athletes, I'm sure maybe even thousands as you've grown your business, but you can't work with every single kid across the country. So for somebody who's hearing this message, what would the one thing be that you'd want to tell them, to any young athlete who's in the gym, like by themselves, trying to work on what can they do to keep up with those things if they don't have a coach like you, with them every single day training? Because even if you have a personal coach, you're not going to have them 7 days a week. It's typically 1 or 2 days a week. So what can guys and girls do training by themselves to improve that process, both mentally and from the sports standpoint?
I think the thing that comes to me is learn to embrace pain early. Learn to embrace pain early. And if you can do that and you can train yourself, at 14, 15, if you already have some time behind your belt and you can learn to embrace pain early. So many kids kind of, nowadays, right now, the biggest problem I see is they give up at a pain threshold. So when pain gets to 10, they just give up. You have to look past your limitations, because pain is really progress. It's muscle development. It's tearing down muscles to become better. And you have to do the same thing with the mind. So what I would say, the biggest thing is learn how to tear your mind down in order to repair it and make it better. And I'm big on David Goggins. He preaches the same stuff that I do, but it has to be like, your brain is an active muscle. If you don't put it through pain and suffering at the right time and be able to have resilience through that early, I'm talking early on with kids. And a lot of parents, to me, they would look at me and be like, what? You know what I mean? Like, we're in a day and age where it's like, what are you talking about? My kid's got to go through suffering, bro. No, he's going to stay home and play video games. You know what I mean? No, I've done the research. Coddling is the number one killer for progress in sports. The number one killer, and it's backed up by multiple studies. So we have to be able to introduce pain early to a kid's life, give them mental challenges early, within reason. Obviously, don't put them out there and tell them, hey, go feed yourself, man, you're on your own. You know what I mean? But like, within reason, give them pain trials. I call them pain trials. Give them within reason. And I'm the first one. I'll never forget, I had a 13-year-old kid. I had to break him down a little bit. Yeah, and then once he broke down, he came back and he was just completely different. It was like nothing could faze him. And it gives me goosebumps right now talking about it. One of my dads is really cool. He said this the other day, and he's also a coach. He said this the other day, and he goes, you're not raising the kid of tomorrow. You're raising a future man, or you're raising a future woman who's going to have challenges in leadership. It's selfish for you to believe that they're going to be 5, 6, 7, 8 years old forever. They're not. You're going to raise a 30-year-old that may be a CEO of a company one day, even if they don't play D1. They may make it to D1, if they can handle that pain threshold early. So I think that's the biggest thing, is being able to apply that to kids. You have to do it tactfully because their brains are still developing.
Yeah.
But that's a very, very powerful thing that you can do, and you can change lives, and you can change your own life if you keep your pain threshold high at a very young age.
One of the things I was going to bring up, and you kind of touched on it, was working with kids who maybe struggle with discipline or struggle with effort or think that things are going to come too easy. G and I were talking about this previously, but with social media, you see things. You see Steph Curry shooting threes from half court. You see Caitlin Clark shooting threes from half court. Kids see this, and they're thinking they want to go straight to the end result. They don't see the work that's put in that's not posted on social media. So how do you deal with athletes who maybe don't understand how hard it is to get good at something like that? And how do you have an approach that kind of takes it step by step so they can get to that point and build their confidence?
It's learning to crawl before you walk. And the problem with the Steph Curry and the flashy 35-foot three-pointers, I mean, I love getting someone there, but it really put a damper on really coaching. Because a lot of kids at 10 years old, they want to go out and shoot from 25 feet and then learn how to finish. You need to learn how to finish inside. You need to learn footwork before you're able to shoot from 30 feet. So it's a little bit, it made things a little bit backwards. So for us, and I know Steph's big on, he works with Positive Coaching Alliance and a lot of these great companies. He's big on coaching, but man, he kind of set us back a little bit. I think it's just really taking things one step at a time and mapping it out, making a pyramid. Look, I got to knock this down first. I'm going to work on that next step in 6 months. 6 months later, I'm going to work on that third step. 6 months later, boom. And about it, and having patience with yourself and just knowing, like, if you start today and you build that pyramid and that foundation in the beginning, and you're passing and your footwork is solid and you can step through and pump fake, then in 2 years, you could have a solid catch and shoot three-pointer, but you can't do them at the same time.
No, it's important. I think athletes have to know that when they're young. You can't just go out and start chucking. I mean, there was a little bit different back in the day when we were growing up and playing. You didn't have as many guys shooting those deep threes, but still in today's world, I see it all the time in gyms. I think the one thing I wanted to ask Shaun was, you mentioned early in the call, you have a couple of athletes, maybe more than a couple, who have gone on to play in college. I think it's so important, and we've seen so many trends like this when we've had these conversations. It doesn't always have to be a private coach, but it's typically somebody in a young kid's life who gets with them early, sticks with them, and kind of helps them ride through middle school, high school, and all the way to playing in college. And again, D1, D2, D3, doesn't matter. They get there. What are some of the cool success stories you've had as a coach, like working with a kid for a long time, and like telling parents, hey, I was a big part of that, and this is why private coaching and mentorship is so important and can get a kid to that final step?
Well, I had a kid that was he ended up going to San Diego State play ball, and I had him for a solid 4 years. And
wow.
The really cool thing about him was, and this is something I look for actually in my coaching now, is if I can give him, like, I try to overtask them, I call it. So if I can give them really complete hard tasks to do and continue to throw it at them, even beyond the time of the session, because I always go over my sessions. I care too much about their development. I always go over. But if I can overtask them and they respond well to it, then that's the time where I'll take and that's how he was so good because of that. So again, it comes down to that mentality, but that's because the parents were very firm early on with him, and we were on the same page about something that I call encouraging pressure. That is something that I developed over time, because if you give a kid pressure, especially young lady ballers, I work with a lot of girls that are like between the 12 and 16, huge development phases for them, right? Mm-hmm. And if you give them pressure without encouragement at that time, they're actually gonna deflate, and they're gonna get tired, and they're gonna burn out. If you're not encouraging, and I see this a lot with parents, and you just put pressure on them, they're gonna break eventually. So you have to be able to encourage these kids, but also give them the right type of pressure. And the biggest thing about him was he just wanted more. He just wanted more. He just wanted more. He would be suffering. He would be breathing. He would be sweating, like dripping sweat, and he still wanted more to do. I'm like, bro, you need to chill. Like, if I tell you need to chill, you need to go drink like some electrolyte right now. But and if I got to tell you that, man, that you're really exceeding expectations. So because I don't tell that to a lot of people. Like a lot of times, I'm really trying to push them to their pain threshold. And so he was just one of those guys, and I was like, I knew he's special. I'm gonna pour into him, and lo and behold, I was able to help him as well make certain connections. Because a lot of times I'll get somebody, and if I get them in their later development years, between like 14 or 16, I'll pitch them to agents. I'll try to get them overseas. I'll really try to be more than just a mentor, be more than just somebody who's working out with you. I'm really trying to be a marketer for you to develop your career so that you can be successful. That's really what I take pride on.
That's amazing, man.
I've sent my kids to Lakers games. I've been that person for them because a lot of times they're not listening to their parents. And you're that one voice that can come in there and reshape things for them. And that's what really makes it.
I know Matt's going to hop in, and this isn't even a question, but I just want parents to hear that again. I mean, parenting, they're always going to be the most important people in your life. I think everybody knows that. But having that extra person who's not your parents, somebody like you, do those things for a kid, like call agents, send them to Lakers games. If your session's running an hour, you don't care. You go an hour and a half because you got a special kid. Like, those things mean so much to those kids. And when we're older now, we're all working jobs. Sometimes you forget that. But when you're 12, 13, 14 with hoop dreams, and you got somebody like you in your corner, like backing you up and doing those things, man, even if you don't get to D1, who cares? You still remember, like, damn, Coach Shaun, like, that was my guy. And you have, like, that responsibility and hard work built into you. So, man, that's so cool. And shout out to you for doing that.
I appreciate you. And it really takes me back to that one person that stepped in and did that for me. I'll never forget him. You know what I mean? Like, he was referred to me by my brother. They had a really good relationship, and for a really good reason. And he really taught me the power of energy and enthusiasm. And so I always try to come at people with very big energy, because they do become codependent on you in a way. And so how you show up for them is how they're going to show up. The really cool thing about a lot of what I do is, like, again, I try to take it beyond basketball. I'm really trying to reframe an athlete's whole nutrition. I had a really cool kid. He's 14. He's probably going to watch this. But he got off sugar, and he was always so inquisitive about every little thing. Like, Coach, what should I eat at this moment? Coach, when it's 6 o'clock at night, what about that time? And all these things. They're like, Coach, what should I eat first time should I get caffeine in the morning, or what should I do, man? And so what he was able to do was he got off sugar, and his whole family got off sugar, and so that those type of stories, I love those. I have another one like that before I forget. I was able to work with one of Nick Cannon's kids, and brilliant mind, 7 years old. And he became a huge influence for their family. We built a really good friendship, really good mentorship. He's going to go places for sure. Super talented. And he just wouldn't eat sugar, man. And after he kind of learned about it, I had him on electrolyte, and he stopped eating sugar. He was able to influence Nick to stop doing that, because Nick is somebody that reaches in the candy jar. You know what I mean? So that's one of my most powerful stories. And I always open with that when I'm trying to talk to a new parent to see if they want to go on this journey with me. Because if you could get a 7-year-old to get Nick Cannon to quit, you're on the right path. So
that's really awesome.
Near quit. I wouldn't say he quit. If he was here right now, he'd probably say that he still has an office full of sugar. He had a sugar. He had like a sugar playground at his office. Like, you would walk in there, and it's like, wow, So being able to help his family was very pivotal for me in my career.
That's great. That's really cool to see the impact that you're having on some of these young athletes. One of the things I wanted to hop into was, and we touched on some of the challenges that young athletes face, but is there a current trend or challenge that you're seeing that young athletes face today? And if so, how do athletes overcome that challenge?
I think time is a huge challenge. And again, Gene, you know this in your business. You're always trying to find more time. And for a kid, imagine his challenges. He's dealing with anxiety. He has self-worth issues. He has parents that may not be there for him all the time. And at the end of the day, he still wants to go play D1. He still wants to go get a scholarship. He still wants to, maybe use some of his college money to help his family. You just never know. You just never know. But getting parents to help their kids learn time management is very pivotal because, again, think about it. If you're really going D1, there's only a small schedule you can have. You have to be up, for me personally, with basketball players, they have to be up a half hour before school. And then they have to be at the court after school. And maybe you're playing on a travel team or maybe you're training with me, whatever you're doing. There's just not a lot of time. So I really try to come in there and give them good perspective because if you're really trying to do something like this, you can't have a social life. And that's really hard for a young teenager to understand. But once you become that support system for them and you believe in them, it's much easier for them not to have a social life. That's just what it takes now. You've got such a you've got all these kids battling. They're all obsessed with the sport and they're all trying to compete. And so the one who chooses to have a social life, the least, you know what I mean, that takes up the least amount of his time is going to be successful. So that's very, very hard for, remember, like for us, how hard was that? It's like, I want to go have a play date, bro. You know what I mean? I want to go do something fun. I want to go play, whatever. I want to go play 2K. It's funny, they've got all these jokes in the video games. They want to play with their friends and stuff. But if they can get that, if they can have the perspective and the maturity to understand that if you put that aside for now, that payoff's going to be huge later.
I mean, I could see that day to day with kids. Even I remember kids coming into high school in particular, not having any idea about time management, and you learn it eventually, but the earlier, the better. I think that one thing I wanted to ask about. I know we talked a lot about the mental side of the game, but you got a killer jump shot, and you're great at teaching it. What about to people who are listening who want to get better at hoops, and maybe they're just starting or their shot's okay? What's like something easy and quick they can do to really see an improvement? I'm not talking about like a 1 day type of thing, but like what are some quick, easy drills that if a kid had a full summer or a full off season to go through, like what would you recommend they do in 30 minutes or an hour a day by themselves to actually get better at shooting?
There's 3 phases to a shot. There's the load, there's like the shoulder load, I call it, or when you're about to push through, and then there's the number 3, which is finally the ball's off your hands. So we have those 3 phases to a shot. And ball connection is when you're at phase 1 and you're loading into your knees, the ball should be going down. And then you keep that connection fluid all the way to point 2 right here, and then you push through 3, keeping that nice and fluid. That fluidity right there is going to be game changing. It's the most simplest, beyond footwork, beyond being able to understand how to move and a staggered foot stance. That one thing, if you could sprint beyond the slot into the elbow just a little bit and throw the ball to yourself. If you got nobody out there, throw the ball to yourself, sprint, land your feet appropriately, and go down in your load as the ball goes down, and then up as you're going through it. Just keeping that fluidity and that ball connection, you could really, 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 really transfer that energy really well and transform your shot in a summer's time. I think that one thing has helped me change a lot of shots. Definitely. I was just doing it yesterday. You can never ever tell them that they need to keep the ball connected. So ball goes down, you go down. You know what I mean? And that is really key because we did that one video a long time ago, right? And I tried to highlight that a little bit for people, and they ended up loving that. And that's key for 30-foot shooters. Whenever I really have an athlete that can stay consistent from 22, 24 feet, I'll move them back to 30 feet. I'll move them back to 35 feet. And so engaging your hips right there is very powerful. So again, that comes down to ball connection. If you watch Dame Lillard's Game 7 shot over Paul George, you guys remember that shot, right?
Oh, yeah.
So he's shooting off his hip. The ball's totally connected, and he's shooting off his hip on the dominant side of his body. Very powerful.
That brings up a really good point too. Since we're getting into specific drills, and that's so important too, because you see a lot of young players who have that hitch in their shot where like not everything's going up together. They don't have that fluidity. Talking particularly about Damian Lillard, who has made some pretty clutch shots. How do you teach that? Like, how do you put players under pressure in drills so it's more game-like? Because I see a lot of guys who maybe train well, but when it comes game time, they either have a coach that's screaming at them, they just don't perform well in game. How do you replicate in game in practice and training?
Again, pain threshold. You push them past that pain threshold. Really, true development happens, and it's at 500 to 1,000 reps. That's just what I've learned. I've had sessions between us, obviously not between us, but that have gone 4 hours long. I've had sessions that go 4 hours long. Now, again, you cannot drum an athlete through a 4 hour session and burn them out. That goes against all the recovery principles and all the things we learned at the National Academy of Sports Medicine. But at the same time, you can do enough light, medium, and heavy stuff in 4 hours to get a 3% increase in their shot right there, right? So real development happens at the 500 to 1,000 mark, and it's really somewhere in the 750 mark. So going out one day, that's why a lot of times I tell them, like, if you go 90 sessions with me, I'll teach you technical, but real development happens at the 750 shots mark. That ball connection right there, shooting off the hip, it is key. And so when it comes to pressure, it's all mentality. And I try to, and if it just, and Matt, it really depends on the person, the personality. You deal with so many different personalities. The parents and I have to be on the same page. If they're not getting firmness at home and they're not getting a push for independence at home, they come to me, it's never going to work. It just isn't. There's not every kid's coachable, quite frankly. And so I try to teach parents how not to coddle. I teach parents how to give them more challenges. I teach parents how to get them to do things that are fearful early, 12, 10. And if the parents are able to listen to me, then we can work together and ultimately get them to that mental capacity. But it really all comes down to their ability to handle pain. If they're getting nervous in those situations, that means they have a high level of codependency at home. So we try to break that codependency as much as we can. It's very difficult because we got a lot of parents that don't want them to grow up. We got a lot of parents that want them to be 9-year-old forever. Oh, you're going to be 9 years old forever. Let's go to Disneyland. No, you're building a man. You're building a young woman. You're building someone that's going to be in charge of the family one day. You know what I mean? So I try to give that perspective to parents, like, understand, like, this Disneyland stuff's only going to be so long, man. You've really got to instill discipline in this young person. And so trying to instill that discipline and giving them, again, encouraging pressure, that's been a big thing for me. And I think that term has really hit parents in the right spot.
I like that.
So encouraging pressure, a lot of tasks, overtasking, those two things, and trying to beat that pain threshold. Because, again, the only limits we set on ourselves are the ones that the only limits we have are the ones that we set on ourselves. So it's very difficult. You have to do it in a very tactful and smart manner, and you have to be able to connect with the child to do that.
Yeah.
But if you can do that with them, I have like parents that will never forget me because of that. I have this one kid, brilliant. He's going to be, doctors say he's going to be about 6'6". I'm completely confident he's going to play D1 somewhere. We just don't know yet. Completely fluid shot, looks just like me. He's left-handed too, so that's the kid that I had to break. I had to give him encouraging pressure, and now he comes back and he doesn't know what pain is. And it's tough to hear that from an 11-year-old. Like, wait a second, my back hurts. How do you not know what it is? You know what I mean? Like, you're at a higher mentality than me. I taught you, you know what I mean? But it's really cool when you get that, though, and again, it doesn't click with every parent because we have certain parents that they're just going to do things their way, and they may never, ever be able to be in the stands and pay $200 to go watch their kid play. That's just the way it is. What I do works, and it's proven methods, and I've worked with, thousands of kids and thousands of overseas players, thousands of college players, So I try to stick to what works, give them encouraging pressure, and push them past pain.
I've been coaching for a long time, but I've never really had a number in mind. But when you said that, it hit home. The number of like 750 is kind of the sweet spot. And maybe to add the question to that, so you talked a lot about pain thresholds and kind of normalizing pressure in a lot of ways. Maybe when you're working with an athlete, what's a couple of particular things you do to help them reach those thresholds? So is it shooting, and just for athletes out there who want to maybe do this or implement it, or work with you, implement it with their trainer, or do it on their own, like, what can they start to do to hit those pain thresholds? Is it shoot 100 shots in a row until you make 5? Or is it wall sits for 5 minutes? Or like 3 suicides at the end of every training? Like, what do you typically do to help an athlete get to that pressure point?
That's really cool that you said wall sits, because I'm so big a fan of wall sits, bro. You want to know why? Because everybody has knee problems by the time they're 16. And if their quads were a little bit stronger, they wouldn't have that issue. So I had a team that I was working with several months ago, and I put them through at the beginning of practice. I was like, let's go sit on the wall for 5 minutes, and they hated me, but I know I understand what it's doing. You know what I mean? I understand how the body works. And sometimes parents don't, and they get mad. But you have to talk to them and be like, look, these are my certifications. These are all the people I've worked with. I'm gonna put your kid through pretty tough situations, but I'm gonna make it fun. And if he loves the game enough, he's gonna have fun with me. And then we're gonna get to where we need to go. But yeah, I'm a big fan of wall sits, bro. I'll put somebody through a lot of wall sits. I also am a huge fan of strength training early. If you can get a kid to understand the power of weight training early, you can change their life, man. It's so important. And so the way I was able to innovate basketball training was I incorporated strength training into my routines. And that's been really huge for me. And I've been able to, because I'm also a data analyst, and so I've been able to understand the data and understand how the body works, and it's made my life and my career so much better being able to teach that. So I think to answer your question, incorporating strength training, you can't get away from it. You just can't. I have guys that, well, I wouldn't say guys, they weren't guys that I worked with, but I have friends of mine in the community that got D3, got D2, and didn't develop strength early. If they would have developed their strength at 14, they would have done even more. And that was something that I actually did wrong when I was that age. I probably would have played, I played semi-pro, but could have gone further if I would have developed my strength. It's 70% of this. It really is. It's 70%. You can only do so much if you're not as strong as you could be. You're gonna get destroyed out there in a lot of ways. So
that's really smart.
At high levels, you're just gonna get destroyed. And so I have this one kid that I was able to turn around. Came to me when he was 12 years old. Got him in the gym. Started lifting heavy. Plyometrics were on point. I was able to increase his vertical to actually, wild enough, 10 inches within 8 months, which is kind of difficult to do. And his mind was on another level too, just complete change. And I blame it on strength training. It's not me. It's just I'm the messenger for that. I'm a messenger for something that's been a staple since some of the best track and field coaches of the 80s. So I think strength training is imperative, Gene.
It's so good to hear that you're incorporating that too, because I know there's probably a lot of trainers that don't. They focus strictly on basketball skills. The other question I had too is, do you work with a lot of athletes that are multi-sport athletes, and is that something that you see as beneficial, or would you think it's better just to have them focus on one sport?
There's a doctor in the community, his name's Mark, and he talks about having multiple specializations before you get older. I'm a little bit in the middle. I've seen soccer players, we obviously have seen Steve Nash, because he was so proficient in soccer that he was able to transform that footwork into basketball. So there's not enough, I don't think there's enough data out to really, there might be, and I haven't read up on it enough, but I feel like you have to be obsessed with one thing that you're doing. And, like SGA and Luka, these are big examples that I always bring up when people argue with me about this. They never multi-specialized. in multiple sports. They dabbled in certain things, but never. It wasn't like one was super proficient in soccer, like a Steve Nash, or you know what I mean, or something like that, or baseball. So I don't know if there's enough data out there to really answer that question honorably. But for me personally, I've seen people really struggle with basketball at a high level just to get footwork down correctly over years. Till they're in their 20s, they may not get it. We could work on something for 2-3 years and it's still not going to click till they're like 21, 22. So because of the very difficult stress threshold that basketball imposes as well mentally, I really lean on the side of doing one sport. And there's a lot of coaches that disagree with me on that. I know Mark disagrees with me, and he would say you should do 3 sports before you're 12. I don't know about that. I think to be the best at something, you have to have 10,000 hours, and I don't know if you can get it if you multi-specialize. But at the same time, your tendons do take a hit. You know, if you're doing that much jumping in basketball, you know what I mean, Gene?
Yeah.
So that's why I try to help them master one thing, but incorporate strength training into it. And now I feel like you have all the diamonds you need to get where you're going.
That's smart. So maybe your strength training is kind of like the version of a kid playing soccer. Like they're not just on the court dribbling, jumping, shooting. Like they're doing other things to make them a better athlete, which other sports could give you. But if you don't want to play those, you have to do something else besides just hooping to make yourself a better player.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing we don't realize is that you're actually breaking your tendons and you're putting pain on your joints when you're on the basketball court. There is this is tough conversation because there is a certain amount of strength that you need to be able to play basketball consistently. And a lot of kids don't have that strength and don't understand why the game's not giving back to them because they were never taught that. It's very difficult on the tendons. It's very difficult on the ligaments if you're not doing it right. It's very difficult on the joints. And that's why if you're able to get those muscles strong, if you're able to get those tendons stronger, I've even talked to some kids that have gone through a slump and they're just not getting better. I've told them to take off 2 months. Take off 2 months, get in the gym, try to get your weight up by 2, 3, 4 pounds. And lo and behold, they do that. Even on that micro scale, they come back and their shot is just, they're able to now to shoot like I always try to get a player to 70 to 80% in practice. If I get you shooting your shot 70 to 80%, you have a definite shot, and I can push you to agents. I can push you to elite coaches at that point. So I've seen people step away completely from the game for 2-3 months, get in the gym, and come back, and it's transformed their career. So
a lot of young athletes, especially, don't know the benefits of strength training. And I know personally, like I tore my ACL when I was in high school, and a lot of the things I do now in my 30s so that I can, like, I do wall sits, I do all these leg things just so I can continue to play basketball. I wish I did when I was younger. So that those are just so, me personally, I can say they're so beneficial.
That's my biggest thing. My biggest two enemies are a torn ACL and a torn Achilles. So knowing what I know, and it was really good that I was able to not just teach basketball, but go back and get my certifications and learn about nutrition and learn about how the body works and take all these variables in data and incorporate them into one kind of product. That's what really helped me set myself apart. It's unfortunate that you had to go through that at a young age, Matt. I know you suffered. Yeah. It sucks. It's very difficult for a kid to go through that. What parents don't understand a lot of times is when I'm putting them through a rigorous strength training program, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to prevent that 2-year long rehabilitation, which just takes it. Look how much momentum. I mean, you suffered, and it took you out of it. Took you out of the game for a couple of years, and I have trainers right now that I work with that I just try to get them certain programs to prevent that. I have one of my best friends that's a D1 coach. Amazing player. Consistent overseas 30 points per game guy and undersized. One of, just like me, undersized. And he tore his ACL because he just didn't have the time to get in the gym. You honestly, if you're trying to train kids at the highest level, you still have to be in the gym,
Yeah.
And I think even NBA players are trained wrong right now. And it's been something that I've been trying to figure out and try to get the answers to for a very long time. Some people say it's overload on the tendons. I think it's a lack of strength training in the right program. I think that's what it is. So if you look at LeBron, longevity, you look at Tom Brady, nutrition. Tom Brady's nutrition was always here. LeBron's nutrition was always pretty high. So you take those two variables, try to take the simplest form of data and the best cases. Those are the two best cases of longevity.
Yeah.
You take those two best cases, the best nutrition on each side and the best strength training on each side. And there you go. Durability, right? That's kind of what I try to look at.
We talked to a lot of high-profile athletes, people that have been, to the top of their sport, pro, college. I think you're a really unique case where you played at a high level, you have the background, and then you actually dove like full-time into private coaching. What would your message be to anybody hearing this who maybe is like a college athlete or a recently graduated former college athlete? wants to get involved with the game. They don't want to be like a high school or college coach or be an NBA coach one day, but they just want to stay involved and coach. What would your message be to actually doing that and giving back to those, those kids in the next generation, just like you did? Like, would you dive into it head first, or would you start part-time, picking up lessons here and there? Like, if you got to do it again, how would you get back involved as a private coach?
I would tell them to, go onto their computer, pull up their computer and go www.athletesuntapped and then sign up as a profile and then start learning right there.
I'm probably going for a softball here. But in all honesty, like, we've heard that so much.
Did I hit it? Did I?
It's like how do we stay involved?
You made it so much easier. People like you, the disruptors in the business, made it so much easier to be able to tack on more clients that way, and to be able to stay involved with the game. You're the person in the middle that's bringing both sides together, and I love that, dude. And so if I had to do it again today, I would find you somehow and I would sign up, and there you go. But
maybe, Shaun, what's one like actual pitfall though? Like, so thinking about everybody loves getting in the gym, training, and making money from it. Like, what should coaches, maybe a better way to frame it, what should they be aware of before becoming a private coach? Like, what's the industry really like when you're living it day to day?
So, I knew that's what you were asking, but you're meaning like anticipating the certain challenges that come with it,
exactly,
and trying to get through those.
Yep.
So when you get done, like, at that age, and you get done playing college, you obviously have a choice to go full time at an office or something. And what I would recommend to them is just to start talking to people and get a couple people that they're training for free. I had to train hundreds of people for free, man. I had to train so many people for free before I was able to really get my name out there. I had to just do so much free work, and I think in any business you have to get your name out there. So what I would do is really try to teach them that it's going to pay off if you do the free work and slowly, gradually get into being paid for your time. But at first, you really have to give with an open heart, do more work than you're paid for. A big Napoleon Hill principle. That's what helped me get where I'm at. And so your nights should be focused on coaching. You should be networking. You should be focused on coaching. You should connect with teams and say, hey, I've got a new way of teaching footwork. I'd love to introduce it to you. Or I have a new philosophy on mental toughness. I'd love to help out your kids for, a little bit of time. There's so many different groups that they can connect with. There's so many different coaches. They're everywhere, and so just get on the phone and start connecting, but also sign up at Athletes Untapped and get going.
Perfect way to end it. Shaun, honestly, man, appreciate you hopping on. This was so much fun. I know we've done a lot, but your story in particular, being that kid growing up who basketball was their outlet, now using that as your business to help the next generation, whether it's kids who want to play high level or just have an outlet, like it's so cool, man. So I know people are going to love this one when we put it out there. And truly appreciate you hopping on.
Yeah, thank you, Shaun. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it, man. Keep being a disruptor. You guys are doing an amazing job. Keep pushing the Instagram, Matt. You guys are killing it. So I'm with you. I got your back 100%, man. Hope to talk to you guys soon.